and welcome to another sketchbook club. This week we will be creating this beautiful flowery love painting. It's a really simple but very relaxing module to do. You can either do this as a gorgeous spread in your sketchbook, or you could do this on a sheet of A3, folding it in half and working on the lower section as shown to make a card. I'm going to do mine in the middle of a sheet of A3 in order to frame it. So you will need an HB pencil, a rubber, your size 1 and size 6 brushes, a set of watercolours and some gouache paints, and optionally some coloured pencils and some fluorescent paint. So the first thing to do is to print out your reference and transfer sheets and instructions. Right, to start you'll need to transfer your banner. Draw over your banner or scroll with your pencil. Leave the lettering as we'll do this later. Now, do feel free to draw this freehand, but they are actually quite hard to get right, as scrolls and banners involve symmetry, which I personally really struggle with. Then, turn your paper over and position on the top of your page and start to scribble firmly all over the back, pressing really quite hard all over. It needs to look quite black, that way you'll know it will definitely transfer. When you've finished, remove the paper to reveal the banner image on your page. You may need to draw over it lightly to make sure the banner is clearly visible. Next, looking very carefully at all the different love letter designs on the reference sheet, start to draw your letters onto your page, very faintly in pencil. It helped me to work on the L and E and then the two middle letters after. That way I managed to make them all the same size. When you are happy with your pencil composition, it's time to add paint. Start by just painting in the greens, so the leaves and the stalks, etc., using your watercolours. Try using as many different shades of green as possible, and don't worry about filling it in too much. The gouache paint flowers will sit happily on top of the green watercolour. Top tip, you could add a little white or yellow gouache to your green watercolours to make them lighter and more different from each other, if you like too. If you don't have gouache, this could all be done in watercolours. It's just the gouache is heavier and sits on top of the watercolour really nicely. Carry on this way until your whole word is covered in green leaves. When the paint is dry and all the leaves have been added, very gently start to rub out the pencil lines you made earlier. Be extra careful around the darker green paint as it's a bit prone to smudging. When the pencil lines have all been erased and the green leaves are finished, you might like to add your layer of colour onto your banner. I used a pale ochre and white mix of gouache paints and my size 6 paintbrush. But a gentle wash of watercolours will work just as well if you don't have any gouache paints. Start with a darker tone on the outer edges and finish with a lighter wash in the middle. I also used a darker shade for the inner loops of the scroll, but do remember this is just a base undercoat, and details like all of the shading can be added later using coloured pencils or further layers of paint once this layer of paint has dried. Right, whilst you're waiting for the banner to dry, you can start to add colour to your green leafy love word. I made a palette of lots of bright colours first, including a few dollops of fluorescent colours, which I'm a huge fan of, but obviously this looks just as good without them. I kept a close eye on my reference sheet too, for ideas of flower styles and colours. You'd be surprised how much easier it is with reference. I worked colour by colour, so adding all the pink flowers first, then the blue, etc. I also added details like flower middles and darker petals, etc. when the paint had dried. However you choose to add the flowers, it is a really peaceful and relaxing task. I actually didn't want to stop. When all of the flower paint has dried, you can now add some coloured pencil details to your scroll. I gave it an outline in a medium brown coloured pencil, shading in the areas where parts of the scroll were behind other parts of the scroll, if that makes sense. I then added a smaller layer of shading with a much darker brown pencil to accentuate the scroll's three-dimensional look. If in doubt, copy where I have shaded in the final image on your instruction sheet. Finally, it's time to add the lettering. Draw over the lettering on your chosen scroll. Then, turn the page over and place your transfer sheet carefully in position. You might need to keep sort of checking underneath to make sure it's in line with your scroll. Then, using a nice sharp, and it's important to keep it sharp, dark coloured pencil, I chose dark brown, carefully go over the template transfer lettering to complete your all you need is hand-lettered scroll. And there you have it, your stunning love letter masterpiece. I hope you love it as much as we did in my studio sketchbook club. We couldn't believe how different they all were. And I hope if you are giving this to a loved one, they love it too. Of course they will. I really can't wait to see them all. So do please share your beautiful works of art using the hashtag SketchbookClubLove so we can see them all. Have fun. Lots and lots of love from me.